to study the harsh continent of Antarctica, such as the ice shelves or polar plateau, a method of transport is required. Here, we'll look at the planes, vessels, and an overland traverse that are used by the United States Antarctic Program over the course of a year. Starting in the month of August, we find the two research vessels used by the program awaiting scientists and support personnel in Chile. The Lawrence M. Gould, the smaller of the two vessels, will soon depart for the Antarctic Peninsula on a handful of science cruises for the austral summer. In the middle of August, aircraft service from New Zealand begins. A large military transport aircraft, the Boeing C-17 Globemaster, carries passengers that sit alongside its cargo. All passengers for the United States go through McMurdo Station, the largest Antarctic outpost. Here, the population ranges from 1,000 people in the summer to only 100 in the winter. One question you may be having is, where does a plane land? Aircraft with wheels land either onto the ice shelf on a runway of compacted snow, or onto the sea ice. The road from McMurdo to the sea ice runway are seen in this photo. For planes equipped with skis, they are able to land on a groomed snow surface, such as the airfield shown here. As a general rule, wheeled aircraft are performing transcontinental flights, while ski aircraft are providing support within Antarctica. Alongside their own national aircraft, the United States charters nearby countries for additional support. This year, an Airbus A319 from Australia transports passengers on a handful of flights, as well as a Boeing 757 from the Royal New Zealand Air Force. Activity at the start of the year is sparse, as mainly support personnel make their way to McMurdo on aircraft to prepare for the arrival of scientists in the coming months. Early October sees the arrival of the Lawrence M. Gould to the peninsula for the turnover of winter to summer personnel. Palmer Station is the smallest of the three United States stations and has no routine air service, with vessels from Chile being the main form of transport. The research vessels perform a number of science cruises around the continent and in the Southern Ocean for a variety of science teams. These cruises range in time from roughly 2 to 6 weeks. At the middle of October, activity explodes as flights depart McMurdo to open a number of other stations around the continent. Ski-equipped aircraft such as the Basler and the Twin Otter, both operated by the Canadian company Kenn Borek Air, are relatively small aircraft useful in the harsh environment. Going a bit larger, the ski version of the Lockheed C-130 Hercules, named the LC-130, operated by the New York Air National Guard, is the backbone of the United States Antarctic Program. The last of the planes, a Bombardier Challenger flown by the Federal Aviation Administration, flies to the ice each year to certify the runways and their navigational devices. Historically, all fuel used at the South Pole Station had to be flown there, a costly and inefficient transportation method. To decrease the cost of shipping fuel to the pole, overland traverses from McMurdo to the South Pole have been performed since the 2000s. The traverse crosses the Ross Ice Shelf, a mass of ice the size of France, and over the Transantarctic mountain range, at a pace no more than a person running. After a month on the Antarctic Highway, the traverse will reach the South Pole before returning to McMurdo with containers of waste and other unneeded cargo. Occupied since the 1950s, the South Pole has seen a number of different stations built. The most recent iteration, officially completed in 2008, was built solely from cargo brought by LC-130 aircraft. With the total amount of building material weighing in at 11 million kilograms, or 24 million pounds, upwards of 1,000 flights were needed to build the elevated station. Besides the 3 permanent United States stations, there are many field camps supported by ski-equipped aircraft. This year, the largest field camp is Waste Divide, situated on the boundary that separates ice flowing into the Ross Sea from ice flowing into the Weddell Sea. Up until this point, both of the United States Antarctic Program's research vessels, the smaller Gould and the larger Palmer, have traveled from Chile to Palmer Station to open the station for the start of the year. Now, the Nathaniel B. Palmer, having recently relocated to New Zealand, is on its way to McMurdo Station. There it will study the Ross Ice Shelf, emperor penguins, and food web dynamics in the Southern Ocean. As January begins and the vessels continue their research in support of Palmer Station, let's travel around to the various stations of other nations that the United States supports by aircraft. Mario Zucchelli is one of them, an Italian station that is situated near to the South Korean Chongbogo Station. The French-Italian Concordia station is, along with the US South Pole and Russian Vostok, one of the 3 year-round stations located on the polar plateau. On the coast, the French Dumont d'Urville station is situated near many emperor penguins. A documentary titled The March of the Penguins was filmed nearby. Moving further up the coast, Casey Station can be found. Casey is a transport hub for the Australian Antarctic Division. A bit farther up the coast is another Australian station, Davis. As the peak of summer activity begins to fade, let's return back to McMurdo and look at one large research project, the Long Duration Balloon, or LDB. Located a short drive from McMurdo Station on the ice shelf, LDB launches a few balloons each year that are kept above Antarctica for weeks at a time by seasonal polar winds, allowing them to circumnavigate the South Pole, reaching altitudes around halfway the distance to space. Payloads the size of a car, such as this year's Spider and Super Tiger projects, are used to study phenomena such as gravitational wave patterns and cosmic ray composition. Preparing to launch such a balloon is no small feat, especially in Antarctica. Transporting the helium, preparing the launch area, even feeding the scientists and support staff at the site requires extensive planning each season. These challenges are not unique to ballooning here, but are also shared by the airfields, field camps, and stations. After successful preparation, launch, and a few weeks in the air, the payload falls back to the ground. At this point, they need to be recovered, and the small ski-equipped aircraft are used to do so, as they are able to easily land on the unprepared surface of snow and ice. With the arrival of March, almost all activity on the continent has screeched to a halt. Only a few flights remain. On them are some of the wintering staff who will maintain McMurdo Station until August. Vessels will continue their science cruises, though they will have to remain outside the area where thick ice on the sea will form over the winter months. Looking back, there was one station that was visited by a United States plane that a photo has not been shown of yet, that being Chinese Zhongshan Station. As the Nathaniel B. Palmer travels along the coast towards Zhongshan and the Lawrence M. Gould around Palmer Station, let's look at how cargo is transported to Antarctica. While we have watched 2 research vessels move around the continent, there are cargo vessels that arrive at McMurdo in January to resupply the station for their year, with often a tanker full of fuel joining them as well. On the peninsula, Palmer Station is resupplied solely by vessel, as there are no routine flights to the station. As the station is relatively small, support from the 2 research vessels is substantial. On the other hand, the South Pole is quite the opposite. With no ocean access, the station is resupplied only by plane and the South Pole Traverse. A plane's time on the ground is limited to avoid its skis sticking to the ice and freezing of its fuel and hydraulic lines due to the extremely low temperatures. Much of the air service is provided by the United States military, who work with civilian contractors on the ground to move the variety of cargo and passengers that are required to conduct science on the harsh and barren continent of Antarctica. With the final flight of the year in early May, the continent won't see another US plane for 4 months. Until then, the wintering crew will go without fresh food and sunlight while they maintain their station. With the possibility of a medical evacuation being required, a runway is maintained year-round to decrease preparation time. Let's listen to the sounds of Antarctic winds as we watch the winter progress together. At the middle of winter, there is a tradition of every Antarctic station sharing greeting cards. This occurs along with a celebration dinner each year on Midwinter Day, the point at which the continent is at its darkest. Here is the greeting card for Palmer Station. For the South Pole, and for McMurdo Station. Finally, the year sees one more cruise for the Lawrence M. Gould. The research vessel travels from Chile to South Georgia, where it will study the impact of ocean warming on seabirds. At the end of its cruise, the Gould returns to Chile. Soon, it will start the year again, alongside the other vessels, planes, and traverses that support science at the bottom of the world.